All right, so we're seeing across the car market right now that sales volume across all dealerships really are tanking right now. We're seeing that Stellantis just reported that their deliveries were down 10.7% to dealerships. We're seeing that Mazda, Kia, their sales are down 3.8%. And Ford just reported their earnings, and their retail division, their earnings were down 66% year over year. So, who I brought in today is Alex. We have a boots on the ground salesperson with Subaru. But the thing about Subaru is that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing with Subaru is that their sales volumes are actually ticking up. So I wanted to dig into it, see what Alex was seeing on the ground level from his dealership. So Alex, I want to welcome you in today. So tell me
Yeah.
from your dealership, what are you seeing on the ground right now as far as inventory increase and your sales volume?
Yeah. Well, first off, Brandon, thanks for having me again on your channel. So yeah, as you kind of alluded to, our we've been fortunate where our we actually, as of March, saw our 19th month over month sales volume increase. So we've continued to increase sales volume, and there's a couple of things that play into that, and one is we've been able to produce more cars as interest rates were ticking up. Buyer demand, of course, was dropping, and that gave Subaru an opportunity to produce more cars, pick back up to meet that demand. Um, and then there's a couple other factors that played into that too. For example, Subaru recently, within the last 2-3 months, came out with some better financing offers. So that's really helped with boost our sales, and then individual retailers. I know for us, we don't sell above MSRP. Well, we never sold above MSRP, but there's only one car now that we actually sell at full sticker, and that is a two-door sports car, the BRZ. If those are familiar with it, kind of like the size of a Miata. That one we get like for our dealership, we get like 7 of those a year. So very low production. But whenever you look at our Crosstreks, our Foresters, our Outbacks, those mainstream SUVs that Subaru's been known for a very long time, we tend to get a lot of demand for those and sell a lot of those.
So for my viewers that are they're in the market for a new car, and in particular Subaru, at your dealership, what are you finding that the price point off of sticker, off of MSRP that consumers are
Mhm.
most likely to get at your dealership specifically?
So we will advertise anywhere from 1 to 3% off of MSRP. So that's just what you're going to find on our website, and it's very specific to the model. So if you're looking at like a base trim $22,000 Impreza, our entry level car, it might only be 1% off, which may not, that may be a couple $100. But if you're looking at like our highest trims, like our Subaru Outback Tourings with the turbo engines, that could be a lot more significant. You're going to see 3% off, most likely on those as an advertised price. Now, things have kind of fallen back to not so much pre-pandemic situations when it comes to negotiating car deals, but there is room for negotiation, and especially, and this has always been this way, but at the end of the month, we just closed out our April yesterday, and a lot of the last few deals I did were maybe at invoice. That's not always guaranteed, but that could be a couple $1,000s off of a car, depending on the trim level you're looking at. And I think that's what's played into Subaru continuing to, not just our dealership, but all the ones across America that are continuing to increase their sales volume. They're not making as much on each individual car, and that's because they're discounting them. So to keep buyer demand up.
So what can other manufacturers, what can other dealers of other manufacturers, what can they take from what Subaru's success is right now? What is Subaru doing right that these other manufacturers are doing wrong right now?
Well, the pricing is just like one aspect of it. That's the first thing people see. They're shopping online. They're a lot of people are shopping online before they even decide to set foot in a dealership. And so, of course, the price is one aspect. So having better manufacturer incentives. So whether it's rebates, um, finance offers, so getting those finance rates down below the average there. But also, I think Subaru has done this really well for a really long time, is kind of giving back to their community, and they're large corporate donors for National Wildlife Foundation, the ASPCA, the Make a Wish Foundation. There's Meals on Wheels, so they do a lot of marketing campaigns that give back, and that's kind of like what they put out there in their marketing. You hardly see advertisements from Subaru regarding pricing because they already have a good price to begin with, and it's more so about the things they do and the experience they provide to their customers.
So one thing I've noticed when I've gone to look at a bunch of these dealerships, we go make videos at dealerships, show prices. But one thing I've noticed from Subaru specifically is that I've 3 or 4 dealerships around my area that sell Subarus. None of them ever during even this crazy time they never had market adjustments. Is that a factor of the relationship between Subaru and their dealers? Is there some kind of unspoken rule between them? Is it something with allocations? Is it what is it that makes it, at least to me, seem like the Subaru dealers, at least that I've seen, have not been trying to gouge consumers like I've seen the big 3 dealerships, like the Ford, the Stellantis, the GM dealers?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. The relationship with Subaru and the retailers, they've got a strong relationship, and part of that is, they don't want any bad players. If they're going to incentivize for good behavior in the form of, if you are doing right by your customers, basically, if you're selling out of your inventory, Subaru is going to give you more. They're going to award you more cars moving forward compared to the dealers that maybe aren't selling as many cars. And selling cars is just a symptom of how you're treating your customers. If you're selling at outrageous prices, you're not treating them fairly, you're not going to sell your cars. So yeah, if you jack up your prices, if you're kind of like take it or leave it, you're not selling inventory, you're not going to get awarded cars in the future. And not to say that other manufacturers don't do the same. There's definitely other OEMs that penalize their retailers for uh, not selling at a fair price. But yeah, Subaru's done a really good job at that, and then our retailer as well. I think we've done a really great job at that.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let's shift to the consumer. What we have noticed and what I've heard from franchise managers is that they're seeing on the ground level that consumers are more strapped. We're seeing that there's a lot more negative equity in the system right now, meaning that they can't just trade up and then roll the negative equity because it's so great
Mhm.
right now for a lot of these consumers. And are you seeing any of that struggle with your consumers at your dealership when they come in? Are you having to turn away more consumers because the banks won't loan, or they don't have enough equity in their vehicle to be able to roll up into the next car, or even they have so much negative equity that they can't roll up and out of their current vehicle?
Yeah, that's another area that I feel like we've been fortunate, because it doesn't matter if you're Subaru or any other OEM right now. Your car is not going up in value anymore. It's going down like in normal times. Subaru, fortunately, has always had a strong resale value. I don't know if it was KBB or who did the study on that, but their data showed that Subaru's been consecutively a resale value has always been strong. So whether you're leasing your car, purchasing your car 3, 4, 5 years down the line, whenever you go to trade that in, you're likely, you're not going to take a big hit. During the pandemic, we had people who didn't matter what car you had, you were trading your car and you had a ton of equity, and you could trade into the next one very seamlessly. Um, we have not seen that struggle as much as other retailers have. I've certainly had customers who bring in, these pickup trucks that they paid a lot of money for, and now they've got that big hit of depreciation, and there are situations where they might be 10, 15, $20,000 hooked in negative equity and not able to trade into one of our Subarus because of that particular car. But at least for my customers who are coming off lease or already have a Subaru and they're trading into another one, they've been in a fortunate position to, where they don't have a bunch of negative equity, if any at all. And then you also got to look at the customer base, the demographic. A lot of our customers are either they're professionals, doctors, lawyers, people who maybe have high incomes, and even to say if you're not in a situation where you have high income, a lot of people are well educated, um, and even if they're younger, they've got more disposable income, I think, with our demographic than maybe some of the other OEMs. So we've got the benefit of that too. Our cars hold value. Our customers also are in good positions. They probably have higher than average credit scores, things like that.
So let's go back. I want to get into the seat of this F-150. It's probably F-150, Ram 1500, whatever, that truck owner that is coming up onto your lot, and they paid market adjustment a year and a half ago. They paid for all the extra bells and whistles, whatever, but then they come into your dealership and they are that $15,000 underwater. They've already
Mhm.
spent a whole day with you test driving all these different cars. What do you do at that point when you see that $15,000 underwater? What is the dialogue like with that consumer? Are there any strings you're able to pull to make the deal happen? What do you do in that scenario?
It's tough because there's not a big markup on Subarus. Even if you drop the car down to invoice price, you might be talking a spread of $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the trim level. So if you discount the car to help cover up some of that negative equity to help them get into the next car, there's that, but there's only so much you could do. Um, and really, it just comes down to at that point, if they owe that much, they're gonna have to come up with the cash to make up for the difference for the bank to allow them to get into that loan. Or unfortunately, it means they won't be able to buy it. And as much as it hurts me to have to do this, sometimes I will help customers maybe find avenues to sell it on their own. If you have a loan, it's very difficult to sell privately, but that's one option, maybe to get more for your vehicle. Or two, you do have these online retailers like CarMax and Carvana. Sometimes they will give a pretty absurd offer. They have their own algorithm that spits out a number, and if theirs is like way out of line, then I might suggest they go take it to them, which I don't want to
Yeah.
do. We're in business to get cars in on trade in, but if there's another dealer that's going to give a crazy wild offer that we can't compete with, I'm also not going to step in the way of somebody getting, trying to get the best, offer and then put them in the best spot financially moving forward.
You bring up a good point, and let's talk about trade-ins a little bit because I'm going to tell you where you new dealership people really piss me off. So I'm a used car dealer, right? So I go to these auctions and I live on your trade-ins. That's how I get my inventory. And
Hmm.
so I need you to sell a lot of cars, so you get a lot of trade-ins, and the trade-ins that you don't want, you send to me. The problem is, you new car dealers over the last 3 years have figured out that you can make a whole lot of money selling used cars on your dealership. So what we're finding is that new car dealers are widening their range of what they're actually keeping for themselves. So are you finding that your dealership is like all these other dealerships that piss me off, and you're keeping more of the trade-ins that you're getting in to roll them to your customers because there's been such a production deficit over the last 3 years?
I mean, I it's hard to say. I've been on the sales floor about 4 years now. I've been with the dealership I'm with for about 8 years, so I've really only seen from right at the start of the pandemic through now. So it's hard for me to personally compare to previously how we would hang on to vehicles. I do know now that we don't send many vehicles to auction unless they're incredibly high miles, have a lot of issues with them, or it's a vehicle. If it's like a high end luxury vehicle that is just out of our wheelhouse, we might send it to auction just because we don't know, um, you know, our customer base isn't coming in there looking at that particular car. They're looking for the Hondas, the Toyotas, the Subarus. That's usually what they're trading in, and those vehicles, may not be very old, so they tend to be good, reliable vehicles that we can, stand behind and be able to sell to a customer and feel good about it. So.
Well, I can tell you if you are noticing that you guys are not sending a lot of vehicles to auction, then yes, you are pissing me off and you are keeping the good stuff for yourselves and you're selling it. So I need you to stop, and we need to start this train right here where all you new stupid new car dealerships need to stop holding on to the good inventory. I
I'll
understand
put
though.
a
Yeah, put it. Who we need to
I'll
email.
put a
Let's
word
just
into
email everybody.
my the boss.
Yeah. But it's a revelation that has come about over the last 3 years for a lot of these new car dealers. Oh, if we give customers nothing for their trade-ins, instead of sending them to the wholesale auction and making a little bit of money, we can sell them to our next customer and make a whole lot of money. So that's
Mhm.
it was only a matter of time before this was going to happen, and you guys keep a lot of the higher quality stuff.
Yeah, and what further compounds that is, dealerships. This is probably no secret to most people, but you make money off. You hope to make money off the vehicle itself, but you also hope that they buy service contracts or warranties and things like that to keep them coming back to your dealership to get service. So that's a huge profit center there. And if they sell it at auction, they potentially miss out on all that. So
Yep.
not just the gross profit on the front end, but also the back end. So that's a big that's a big thing. So.
So let's go back to inventory. I know you talked a little bit about it at the beginning of this
Mhm.
video, but so what did inventory look like a year and a half ago, and what does it look like now as far as wheels on the ground?
A year and a half ago, there was times where we had 0 cars on the ground. That was pretty normal for a while there, and so every customer that was coming in to buy a car was ordering a car. So they would come in, they would test drive maybe one of our pre-owned models, or we had our demo cars, our service loaners that we lend out to customers, and so they would test drive that and then get a feel for, see if they like the car, then they would order it, and then they would wait 2 to 3 months typically before that car would come in. Now, we're fortunate where we've got probably close to 100 cars on the ground, and we're not an
Wow.
incredibly large dealership, but um, we're probably like a medium size for the Subaru retailer, and so that's getting back to more normalcy for us. And now when customers come in, they have more options to choose from. You have not only different models to choose from, but also different trim levels and sometimes different colors in the exact same trim level. So you have more of that normalcy that we didn't have the last few years. And it's also put consumers in a better position. I've been saying it for months on my YouTube channel. Hey, look out for inventory. When you start seeing inventory load up on dealer lots, doesn't matter if you're looking at Subaru or elsewhere, if those vehicles are truly unsold, that gives you leverage. Whenever you go in there and you're looking, not only do you have more options now, but that means the dealership's going to have more pressure to move that product. They're going to want to sell that vehicle, and so you have room now. And we've seen that for last 3 to 6 months where dealers are discounting cars from all OEMs. So.
So if you were to give a viewer of my channel that's going to look for a new Subaru somewhere other than your dealership, and they
Mhm,
see the dealership that is posting the vehicle for sale at MSRP,
mhm.
what percentage off of that would be a strong offer from that consumer, and what would you recommend if you were a buyer and going in? What would you offer under MSRP?
Um, I would probably start with, and just to give you like some easy numbers versus percentages, because that's how you're going to see a lot of manufacturers advertise it, is 1 to 3% off. I would probably go in there, not to say that you would get it, right out of the gate, especially if it's at the beginning of the month. Um, I'd probably ask at least, 500 to $1,000 off and see. It's likely you might, like I said, towards the end of the month, you're going to have more leverage. It's likely you're going to get more than $1,000 off, depending on the trim. Now, if you're looking at a base trim level, Subaru might only have like $700 in markup between the dealer invoice price and what MSRP is. If you're looking at the touring trim, which is Subaru's highest trim, you might see a lot more, $2,000 to $3,000 in gross profit there to work with.
So educate us real quick. Why is it better for a consumer to go in and make offers on vehicles at the end of the month versus another time during the month?
Yeah. So I shouldn't assume that that makes sense to everybody, but
Right.
the whole deal with auto manufacturers is they want to move as much product as they can. They're sending this to dealerships, and then dealerships are incentivized to, as soon as it hits the ground, a clock starts ticking. That vehicle, the manufacturer tracks how long it takes them to sell those vehicles, and the dealerships that are selling them quicker, their sales velocity is quicker, they're going to be awarded more cars moving forward, which then gives them more opportunity to continue making more money off these individual cars, especially if you're discounting them and you're making less money on each one. That's whenever it becomes a volume game, and you have to sell more vehicles to keep up the pace. So and on top of that, manufacturers, OEMs will give uh, retailers like bonuses or spiffs for selling X amount of units in their territory. So if they exceed their quota, they get kickbacks from it. So that's why you see, doesn't matter which OEM you go to, towards the end of the month, they're gonna be more likely to discount then than they are at the beginning, because they're not under that same pressure.
So I want you to put your salesman hat on real quick, and we're going to have an objection from a customer here. We got from the chat. We got Ron is asking,
Uh-huh.
is coming up to you on the dealership. Say, you know what? I prefer a two-wheel drive vehicle and not one of these all-wheel drive Subarus because the two-wheel drive is less complicated and cheaper. How does Subaru handle? We're going to switch it. How do you handle a customer like this?
Sure, yeah. It's honestly not one I get often, because I think a lot of people want the all-wheel drive. But anyways, assuming you want the front-wheel drive version, a lot of people, first thing is they assume, okay, well, you know, I figure out, why do you want all or why do you want front-wheel drive? If that's purely for savings on gas, because it is true that a front-wheel drive vehicle is going to be typically more fuel efficient than an all-wheel drive vehicle, then I would encourage you to look at Subaru's all-wheel drive, what their typical miles per gallon rating is, and most of them are pretty good. You can get the high 20s to even into the 30s, 30 miles per gallon on some of our like Imprezas and Crosstreks. When you get into the heavier ones and the ones that have turbocharged engines, it's going to skew below that, in the mid 20s, even below. But they have really good fuel economy. So I would say, hey, look, you've got really good fuel economy. Also, depending on or good fuel economy especially for being all-wheel drive. But you also have the confidence, whether you're in rain, snow, wherever. If you mash the gas, if you're trying to go around a turn or pass traffic, you're not worrying about the understeer or potentially getting involved in an accident. You've got more stability with that all-wheel drive traction. And then in terms of cost, like mechanically, there's Subaru's had their all-wheel drive, their symmetrical all-wheel drive around for, gosh, I don't know. I know like their first all-wheel drive probably came out in the 70s. So not to say that the system now is the exact same, because technology changes, but they've had time to refine that, improve it, make it even better. Their all-wheel drive vehicles, you could ask almost anybody, look up on forums, people who drive and own these vehicles. They're second to none. I mean, the all-wheel drive system works really well, and mechanically, I haven't heard of people having issues with that, or tons of cost involved in the all-wheel drive system. So that's what
Right.
I would say to hopefully help persuade you to consider the all-wheel drive on the Subaru.
All right, good. So we got another one. We want to ask a little bit behind the scenes here as a car salesman, and BRG is asking, what kind of spiffs do you as a Subaru
Hmm.
salesman get, and is it tied to certain models, at certain
Hmm.
months? Is it based on promotional advertising? How does that work?
So yeah, so you get from the manufacturer, if you sell, so many cars, because sometimes there's like a criteria before you get paid on anything. You have to sell like at least 5 cars to get paid from Subaru, or that's just an arbitrary number. But they
And
changed that goal.
is that in 1 month? Do they rate it by month?
Rated by month, so it's it's
Okay.
it's monthly. During pandemic, when they didn't have inventory, they dropped it to 0. If you sold one, you got a spiff, and it's not gonna pay your bills. That's just an added bonus. It's not a ton of money. Some people might think, oh, it's they're getting so much more. It's really, at least for me personally, it's not a big motivator. I'm not looking at that solely whenever it comes to selling a car. Um, but they do sometimes, like an example is our Subaru Solterra. They do have model specific spiffs. So if you sell one of those, Subaru will give you a much bigger payout, but that's because it is a very low volume car, and right now
Yeah,
it's a very
if you
low.
sell a Solterra, then the salesperson also gets a Solterra. They just give you one for free, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna get to that soon because they can't sell them. And for those who are unaware, the Solterra is Subaru's all-electric vehicle that they partnered with Toyota. And it's unfortunately it hasn't done as well as I think a lot of us would like. It's The EVs are exciting to see some of the things coming, but there's limitations with range, and they are getting better at that. I know our 2024 model that's getting ready to be released is gonna the charge times are much quicker. They've reconfigured a few things, and moving forward, Subaru's switching over to they're still gonna have the EVs, but they're also going to start making some of our popular like Forester models into a hybrid. So
So for the Solterra, so it's not selling. They're like, do they make you sales manager if you are able to sell one? If you're able to sell one, what's the spiff look like on the Solterra?
well, I'll say it's you can get a lot more. I mean, it's not something that's going to pay your bills because you might only sell. We might get like 5 or 6 Solterras in a year. It's not a lot, so you're not even going to be able to sell one of those a month, and then you also have multiple other salespeople that could potentially sell that one too. So uh, it's just kind of like an added cherry on top. But you might get a few $100s on a Solterra compared to like $50 on a regular car, just to give
Okay,
you some
okay.
some So it's substantially more, but it's not something that's like going to change your life. So
They're just telling you they would 6 times rather you sell that car than an Outback.
yeah, yeah. And if you
Yeah.
look at their finance incentives on the Solterras right now, you'll see that too. They've got I think at one point near 0% or close to it. So I mean, the finance rates and lease rates are a lot better on those.
Well, Alex, I want to thank you for pulling back the curtain today. Check out Alex's channel. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description below. And I just want to thank all of you for joining us for this little talk today. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel, like this video, leave us a comment. Let me know who you would like me to bring on to interview next, and show you a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff other than just looking at my stupid face every time I put out a video. So thanks again, Alex, and
Yeah,
hope you guys
thanks for
have a
having me.
great rest of your day. Thanks, Alex.